Alright guys, back on the rat bow today. We're going to shoot this thing through a chronograph because I'm going to use this bow at an ASA National tournament, and for me to do that I cannot shoot faster than 280 feet per second. At a local 3D you can shoot whatever you want to, you can get an advantage from your speed, but they do cap your speed there. There is a little loophole. They give you, I want to say 4%, something like that. Look the rules up to be sure. So if I'm just over 280 I'm alright, but I don't want to be 285 or higher. So first things first, I need to weigh the arrows, see where I'm at. So this arrow weighs 396, and that's with 120 grains in the tip. So I'm going to shoot this through the chrono, see where we end up. I think that's going to be a little hot, so I've already got some extra weight in these arrows, and we'll see what we need. You can also adjust your poundage, but I like the way this bow holds right now. And the more weight you take out of your limbs, the more potential for, movement in your limb pockets. Most modern limbs are good, but I'd just rather keep those, honestly, I'd rather keep them all the way clamped, but this bow holds better at about 65 pounds, so that's where I've got it set. All that said, let's see how fast it is with 120 grains in the tip and a 396 grain arrow. Chronographs don't do particularly well in fluorescent lighting, but I have found if I set this thing directly underneath this light, it seems to do okay. Okay, so with a 396 grain arrow, that's 120 points in the shaft, 120 grains in the point, I should say. 290, which is too fast. So I need to slow that down. The next arrow I'm going to try has 50 grains in it. So that'll be 150 in the point. Yep, total weight 427. So we're good there. That's a heavy, heavy arrow, and I understand. But here's the thing. There's a couple of reasons I'm okay with that. One being these thicker 3D arrows have a real stiff spine to maintain durability. So that extra point weight is actually usually a good thing. It'll help break that spine down and your arrows will group and tune better. So I don't mind shooting real heavy point. The other thing is these bigger arrows catch a lot of wind, and with the big heavy point, they seem to do a little better in the wind. So, I wouldn't shoot 150 grains in most arrows, including my hunting arrows. I know that's become kind of a common theme and folks do that. I'm only doing it to slow my arrow down. So just remember, bow hunters, you're slowing your arrow down and you will gain some advantage. Just do the math on your pros and your cons for the big heavy arrow versus the light fast arrow. But all in all, heavy 3D arrows, pros across the board because I need to slow it down anyway. So let's see what 150 grains in the point looks like. 282. That's it. That's exactly where we want to be. So again, that max is 280. But if you're at an ASA National tournament and they pull you to the side and chronograph your bow, you have a little bit of wiggle room due to chronograph error or a difference between chronographs. I usually shoot for just a couple feet per second over 280 and let it ride, and never had an issue at all. So that's perfect. This bow is now the perfect speed. I'm going to put all of my arrows together. Actually, I'll show you guys how to adjust the weight in these gold tips, and that's the main reason I shoot gold tips, is because it is so easy to change point weight. I'll show you that right now. So with a lot of arrow shafts, to change your point weight, you need to heat up your point, remove it, and glue in a new one of a different weight. I have points that will do that, but Gold Tip makes these FACT, don't know what that stands for. I'll put it across the screen here. But it's just a weight system. It's got threaded points, and there's little threaded weights that you drop down the arrow shaft and screw in. So all you have to do that, again, this has got 120 in it now, and I want it to have 150, is you just take your bushing out, your arrow nock and bushing, just twist right out. You have to buy this. I guess you could probably make one, but it's just a really long Allen wrench. Slides down into your shaft. I've got that I've got that 20 grain weight in there I'm going to remove. That slides right out. Gold Tip sells packages of all different types of weights. I have a package of 50 grain weights here, which is going to be perfect for the speed we're shooting for. You drop that in, screw it back into your point, and put your bushing back in your arrow. So if you just put this bushing back in here, see how it's got a little bit of slack, it'll slide around. They're a fairly tight fit, but they rotate a little too easy and they can pop out. A lot of guys know this, some guys don't. I'll show you real quick what I do to fix that. Let me adjust my camera. All you've got to do to get a tight fit on your bushing into your arrow shaft is take your arrow, stick your bushing against that plastic bag, into your arrow, push it in, rip it off, and that plastic makes that thing nice and tight and secure. And then you can just leave that plastic hanging if you want. I just usually burn it so it hides it a little bit. Boom. Okay, now all I've got to do is put 50 grains in all of these points, add a couple points. Then I'll weigh all of my arrows. If they're all within 2 or 3 grains, I'm good to go. And it's just a matter of sighting this thing in, which I'm going to do tomorrow. The weather is real nasty out today, and it's just cold, basically. So I'm going to wait till tomorrow. It's going to be a little warmer, a little nicer. I'll go sight this thing in. It's going to be ready for 3D season. So I'll see you tomorrow. All right, not perfect. We got this little outlier here, but 20 yards looks good. I'm going to shoot the 45-yard class, so I'll run 20 to a 50-yard pin, and then I believe this is a 5-10. It is, so I'll run a 60-yard just for fun. Good group, so I can trust that to give me a good sight adjustment. Let's go check that out. First 30-yard group out of the rat bow. All right, so every group I've shot so far has had this one arrow kind of floating off to the right. So I'm actually going to pull that one. One thing you can try to do if you've got that going on is clip it on your string and rotate it just one vein. Sometimes you can bring it back in. If I still have this arrow flying, I'm gonna mark it so I know which one it is. And if it's still not with the other two, then I will just ditch this arrow. Just gonna put a red mark on it. Or shoot it first here. Here's what I'm talking about when I say rotate it. What'll happen is sometimes you're just in a weird spot in the spine of that arrow, and for whatever reason, it's called knock tuning. Look guys, I don't take all this tuning stuff to the nth degree like some do, but these little tips and tricks, they do make a difference. If you've got an arrow that just doesn't cooperate, you're stacking two and one's out, that is a knock tune, I guess. Just rotate it one vein, meaning you have a cock vein straight up on this drop away. I just rotated it to the right. 90 degrees, I guess it would be. That might bring it in and it might not. We'll see. Could have been me, and it could just be a coincidence that I've always got one just off to the right. Totally could be me, but usually if it's consistent, it is something in the setup that you can fix. Okay, so now I'm going to adjust that 30-yard pin just slightly. Again, it was a tad high, so I'm going to move it just a tad up. which is good. It's actually tightening up my pin gap, which I like. The tighter your pin gap can be, well, it means the more forgiving your yardage is. I'm not judging yardage in the ASA class I'm planning on shooting, but a smaller pin gap still helps me if I've got a 26, 27 yarder, I've got a 20 and a 30 yard pin. If they're 1.5 miles apart, I'm guessing a lot more than if they're real close to each other. It's a lot easier to bracket. So all things looking well right now. So let's shoot our next 30 yard and see if we've resolved our issues here. Still tad high. Tad high. I'm actually going to adjust this mid group because I wasn't sure that pin moved anyway, and then that shot has verified that. You should shoot 3, but I don't follow my own rules sometimes. And this is a tight pin gap, which you guys saw. I chronoed it, so it's not that it's incredibly fast. But your pin gap can differ on the length it is from the bow. Generally, the closer your sight is to your riser, the tighter your pin gap. So if you're shooting in the pin class, a lot of target bows have sights way long bars out here. And the reason they do that is because it shows torque and can make you more accurate. But with pins, it also opens your gaps. There's pros and cons to all that. I might deep dive into that at some other point, but that was good. Okay, 30 is good to go. That first shot was a little high. I made the adjustment. Second shot wasn't my best execution, and I think I pulled that left. Third shot, everything felt perfect. I think I dotted it up. Yeah, I did. Okay. So while that group may not make a lot of sense to you all, you have to understand how you feel. Like, if you know you made a good shot, go off of it. I know this was a good execution on that first shot, but my pin was a little off. This one I didn't execute real great, and I knew that. My bow went off while I was over here, so I'm okay with that. Hit behind the pin. This one, everything felt perfect. That thing is a dot. 30 yard is set. It's freaking beautiful today. 50, almost probably 60 degrees. I got one of the bikes out today. Got the oil change of the lawnmower. I love it. All right. All right. 40 yards right here. I'm not going to get 50. I'll have to back that back up, but let's go ahead and get 40 set it in. I can already tell you that this pin is way off. I don't know if you can see those gaps. Look how tight my 20 and 30 are. To be honest, they're kind of high in that pin guard. Knowing I'm going to use those more than anything, I'd prefer them to be more in the middle of the scope or the housing here. But I expected my gaps to be larger than that, so I thought I'd need that room for these other pins, but I'm not going to. I'm not going to mess with it at this point, but if if you're hunting and you're going to use your 20 almost all the time, set that closer to the center of your guard. Sometimes it's a little easier to anchor and everything feels more aligned. But now that just means I'm going to have a fun pin. So I'm going to need my 20 through 50, and then I'm going to drop that thing down to as far as I can sight it in. That'll be my bomb just for playing around. All right, so this has got to go up a considerable amount. I can't tell you guys how excited I am about the way this bow feels. I've always loved this bow. I mentioned that early on in the build, but ooh, boy, is it sitting nice. It's got me really thinking about these ASA tournaments. Usually I don't grab a bow, set it up, and feel this comfortable with it. This thing is Feels really, really good. I will say, I've tried shooting it outside in the wind. It's a bear because it's not real heavy. And it's got a lot of wind planage. It could really burn me on a windy day. I might just take the stabilizers off. All right, 40. Man, I'm rambling today. Got a lot to say. Beautiful left and right, a little hot. That shot felt great. I'm gonna go ahead and make a one-shot adjustment on that thing. I'm gonna raise that pin. I cannot believe how tight these pin gaps are. I'm loving it. This sucker might end up being, this might be my best target setup. With tight pin gaps and this much comfort to it, she could be a winner, boys. Might have taken a little too much out of it. I think that's low. Shot felt good, so. I kind of sprayed it on that one. All right, so here's my first shot. It was a tad high. I made my adjustment. This was not as good of a shot. I dropped it a little low. This shot was better and I was still a little low. I'm gonna bump that pin back down, shoot another group, and I'm gonna shoot a 3-arrow group so we can actually have a fully consistent group. And I'm not showing you guys these little chase arounds. It's embarrassing with groups like that. We got a 3-arrow group. I don't think it's wonderful. I think I got a flyer, but either way, 40 yards looks good. Yep, I got a flyer right here. You know, I actually think I might have glanced that. That's going to be my excuse. See how the back of the arrow's over here? If you ever have one that flies out with 2 really good arrows in a group, just claim that it was a glance out. I actually think that was. You can see the nick on the bushing there. But that's all I needed to know. 40 yards is on. This bow is on, and I'm loving rat bow right now. Came back here and was gonna set my pin to 50 yards, and I changed my mind because I just realized or remembered I'm gonna be shooting a 45-yard class, meaning the maximum my targets can be is 45 yards. So 40 to 45 yards can be a big difference in your pins, and I didn't want to have to bridge 40 to 50 like I usually do. They're going to stick some right there at 45 and some right between 40 and 45. Anyway, in my head, I've decided to have a 45-yard pin. So I'm going to run 20, 30, 40, 45, and 50. And I've already done that. So here's my 2 shots at 45. Again, not perfect, but, you know, that's the size of a 12 ring, maybe slightly larger. I caught it, and I pulled that one out a little left. To be honest with you, my shooting stamina is down, and so for the amount of arrows that I've shot already, I'm thrilled with that at 45 yards. I'll make sure that 50-yard pin is good. You guys have seen enough. Thank you for watching. Just wanted to show you that this bow is put together, it's sighted in, it's chronographed, 3D season's coming up. And I hope that you continue to enjoy this project because I continue to enjoy messing with it. Stay tuned, more 3D stuff coming up.